The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. Welcome, Quack.
Program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Ah, there it is. You tuned into the Farron Dozier Show on nbradio.us, TikTok edition, and Live Sports. Catch me here Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific time, only on nbradio.us. Shout out to how did I do? Was that a good take? That might work. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm blessed, my brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Hey, did you see the game last night?
Oh, that was a good game.
But did you see the shot?
I lost money from that shot.
Oh, man, that shot was cold,
I
man.
hated it, but it was good. Damn. What's in those jeans?
You really want to know?
I do.
Exhaustion, muscle spasms, asthmatic issues, unexpected sickle cell trait crises.
Damn. Are you serious? When I was young, I found out I had sickle cell trait. My mom's told me, but I ain't have no knowledge of it. But when I got older, I had a child, and the doctor told me my daughter has sickle cell trait. Do you know the facts that both parents have sickle cell trait? There's a 50% chance the child may have the trait, and 25% chance the child may have the disease.
Hey, that's what's the count. Do you know that 2.5 million people in the United States have sickle cell trait, 300 million people globally? I didn't find out I had sickle cell trait until I was in the Army, 10 years. Next thing you know, I had a sickle cell trait exertion site.
Sickle cell? I thought that was a black gene or something.
Nah, man, the Latin community is number 2. 1 out of 36,000 babies are being born with sickle cell disease. You could be Caucasian, Mediterranean, European. You gotta know your bloodline, man. There is an inherited gene in our community that has been forgotten. The name is sickle cell trait. WDCONSCT, also known as What's the Count, is out to bring awareness, education, and prevention to people all over the globe. Want more information? Call us now at 323-215-5384 or visit www.wdconsct.org. All right, welcome to another episode of the Farron Dozier Show right here on the Military Broadcast Radio Network. That's right, that's MB Radio. Again, thank you for listening in today. We always have an important show for you right here on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific time. If you want more information, please go to farrond.com. And also, you see that QR code up there. Make sure you hit that. Support our veteran community. They are giving veterans a voice here on this platform. I'm one of those veterans, and your contribution can help us move other veterans forward in discovering what's next for them, right? In the conversation. Let's see. Today, we're just going to have a discussion. I almost just did a pre-record or just played an old episode, but I sat with just some of the things that I've been thinking about and wanted to express that conversation, right? So this is an opportunity of, again, for us to share our spaces, our voices, where we are in life. You just never know who might hear your conversation. So not to be selfish and just like, you know what, I'll just do a show next week. I really sat with myself to see, you know, what I would like to talk about or share from my perspective. If you would like to be a guest, right there at Farron Dozier on all platforms, you can hit me up and set up a talk. We can have an interview here, share your story. If you support veterans, all those things that you're up to, you're more than welcome to come here and share your story, share your experience from music, talk, outreach, you know, whatever you care about. This is what this platform is about. It's not just a one-way conversation. we create the space for relatedness topics. So that first PSA, let's talk about that. That PSA is near and dear to my heart. That is real life. I experienced what they call sickle cell trait exertion with rhabdomyolysis, and had no idea that sickle cell trait was even in my DNA until age 29, and then a few years later collapsed from that experience of sickle cell trait exertion with rhabdomyolysis. That became the end of my career, and found myself lost, found myself in the space of, why am I here? Why am I born? You know, all these different things that sometimes we ask ourselves in silence. Like, we don't really say those things out loud, right? And so being able to go through that process, experience that for myself, and then come out of it, you know, come out of it still alive, still in front of you today, right? That really is what altered my entire life experience. That episode, that defining factor of my life is over, and then finding, like, what's next, right? And for some of us as veterans, first responders, we find ourselves in a space of, as I titled this episode, you versus you. That's capital YOU versus lowercase YOU. And which one of that perspectives, interpretations, perceptions was leading my life? Today, I can articulate that and tell you that it was a lowercase YOU that was leading my life. First 40 years. Now, I'm not going to say the capital YOU wasn't there observing what was going on in my head. However, my emotional state was leading my life. That's the lowercase YOU that I'm referencing. And so going through life and these different journeys, being able to look back, you know, there's some things that I would like to share with you today. We're going to go in some phases of those conversations. I'm going to hit some key points of those. And I'm not going to talk generalized. Nope, I don't do generalized conversations. If I can't talk from my life experience, then the best that I can do is sit and try to listen and relate to people where they are in life. And sometimes that's just as good as trying to understand one another, because I don't understand Farron. And why would I put all that pressure on you to understand me when I don't understand me? That is something that I learned to live from and apply to my life, because I don't understand Farron. I'm still learning about who Farron is, what Farron doesn't like, what he does like. Why don't Farron like that? What is Farron trying to protect himself from other people? What is Farron trying to protect himself from himself? Right? There's a lot that goes on in us as people. And so that YOU, capital Y, is you. That's you, the spirit being of you, if you believe in those conversations. But that's the voice. When you hear that voice in your head, when you close your mouth and you hear that voice that's talking, that's the lowercase YOU. You are the you that's observing that voice say those things to yourself and wonder, why are we even talking like that to ourselves? Why are we being so cynical about life? Why are we so judgmental about people? Why do I talk to myself about myself in such a negative, disempowering context? That's the battle between you and you. And I've done some of that work the last 15 years as a patient, advocate, not a doctor, not a psychologist. I believe that there is a space for us as people to connect to other people that may lead them to, hey, you know what? Maybe this is what you could be dealing with. Maybe this is what it looks like. And maybe when you hear somebody else share their story or share their experience, they might want to take a look at themselves. And maybe these conversations are enough to soften someone's heart about themselves first. See, a lot of times we want to try to fix other people, take care of other people, and then we leave ourselves suffering in silence, trying to figure out, how come nobody wants to talk to me? How come I don't get the same thing back from people as I give to them? So many layers to that conversation. And so I'm not going to talk to you from a black male. I'm not going to talk to you from a soldier or a dad or a grandpa or a broadcaster. Today's conversation is just who is Farron and the life of Farron. And what did that look like? And how did I even get here in front of you today to even have the confidence to share my story, to have the courage to even say some of the things that I've been through that I'm not proud of. No one's perfect, right? No one can cast that first stone at somebody else and say that, oh, they're a bad person. There seems to be a reason why we act the way that we act. Sometimes we don't say the reason why we act the way we act because we don't want people to judge us. You might not be my friend anymore. You might not want to talk to me. You might not like me. Like, oh, those are the things. But what's worse than judgment is slander. Like, what if I sit here and tell you all my deepest secrets and then you use that against me later on in a conversation? Men just don't fear that. People fear that. And if you're willing to tell the truth to yourself about yourself, then you might find a space where you discover peace of mind. And I was able to discover peace of mind. And in that discovery of peace of mind, I can say I've been chasing peace of mind for 15 years, but not from other people, from myself first. Because once I was able to tell the truth to Farron about who Farron was being and what Farron was doing, I was able to make those corrections. You see, people aren't chairs. I'm not a chair. I'm not a table. I'm a person. My brain is malleable. It can grow. It can create. It can learn. Right? So then, why do I talk to myself like that's just the way that I am? Why do people talk about people like that's just the way Farron is? Or does Farron occur to you that way? And if I occur to you that way, then maybe you can ask me some questions to find out what's going on over here. But see, we don't do that. Or do we? Do you do that? I learned to be that kind of person. Because sometimes it's not always about Farron. Sometimes that person in front of you is dealing with something that they're dealing with, and you are the blunt of that conversation because you're in front of them. But the moment you take it personal, the moment that you put yourself inside that and to defend what they're saying, then maybe you get defensive. And maybe listening disappears. And now there's reactions. But do we take a step back and have a conversation? Do we take a step back? No, I don't do it all the time. I haven't mastered that part of it. Sometimes I do react. But why do people react? Why do people say things the way they say things to you? What if it's coming from love? What if it's that we as people don't like to see people hurting? What if we don't want to see people struggling or whatever that is for them? That we want to help, that we want to fix, that we want to help sort it out. So imagine that all that stuff that you feel like you're experiencing from people is really from a place of love and concern and worry. Could that be? Could that be where that stems from? Is everybody a hater? Or is it that your own subconscious mind is the biggest hater because it keeps telling you that you can't do that you're not smart enough, that you're not good enough, that there's something wrong with you? And so you don't even take the step. And then we blame other people. You know, I learned life in 3 categories. You can live life in the stands, right? If you live your life in the stands, then you're looking at the game of life and you're telling people, if I was you, I would have shot that. If that was me, I would have did this. If that was me, I would have did this. If that was me, I would have never done that. I would have did like that's people who live in the stands. And then they get up and they go outside and they walk home or they go home and they don't take no action. They just living in life. If that was me, I would have done this. But there are also people who live on the bench. They live on the bench of life where they're waiting for somebody to put them in the game of life. And they're practicing and they're hustling and they're training and they're doing everything they need to do. Key word is to do. Waiting for someone to put them in the game of life. And what happens if you don't get in the game that day? Are you disappointed? Are you upset? Are you frustrated? Are you a little bit embarrassed because you suited up and you didn't get in the game of life today? Do you want to get traded to another team? What is that? What goes through your mind? And so sometimes we live the life of a player on the bench. But what's different is that third piece. That third piece is those who live their life on the court. And imagine if you live your life on the court of life. See, when you live your life on the court of life, hey, you're in the game, you're making plays, you're making passes, you're taking shots, you're in there. And even if you take that shot and you miss, you don't walk off the court. Do you? Or do you adjust and you take another shot? Or maybe if your shot is off, maybe today you're a passer. Or maybe today you're just going to get rebounds. That's a person who lives on the court. They are taking shots, taking chances. They're experiencing what it is to be on the court. The person in the stands is talking about what they woulda, coulda, shoulda if that was them. The person on the bench is just waiting for their turn to get put in the game. So who are you waiting for to put you in the game of life? This is why I really don't care about networks. People say, oh, you got to go and network. You got to go network. You got to network and meet people and network. Yeah, I do understand that network conversation. See, I'm not an entrepreneur, right? I'm a soldier. So I've been in the military 24 years. This whole entrepreneur life, I don't really care about. But for some people, you got to go and network. You got to be out there and meeting people. Really, though. So if I don't have a network of people, I can't get in the game of life. I got to wait for somebody to put me in. I got to wait for somebody to say, okay, Farron, it's your turn. That's not wrong. My conversation to you today is not right or wrong or good or bad. No, it's not. You don't even have to agree with it. I'm just asking you to look in life for your own self and see, where are you at? Are you in the stands? Are you on the bench? Or are you on the court? Sometimes I find myself on the court. Sometimes I find myself on the bench. Very, very seldom do I find myself in the stands, though. Very seldom do I find myself in the stands of my own life, of my life, this life that God has given me. And why I can say that, because I'm no longer allowing my soul to lead my life. See, your soul is where your mind, your will, your emotions, that's all where that soul is, inside of there. And so if I don't feel like it today, then I'm on the bench. Or if I don't feel like it, I might be in the stands. See, I can't feel like it and be on the court. I can't feel like it and be on the court of life. It's a different experience. So being able to find yourself, to see where you are in life, might be a space to look from on how you need to get your day started. For me, that bench is in the bed. During my depression and anxiety, that's even today, I find my comfort in the bed. Got a Cali King to myself. And I find myself in bed. Comfort. Because when I was in that space more deeper than I am today, that's where I laid. I laid in the bed. So I'm just asking you, where you at today on the court of life? Where are you at? You in the stands? You on the bench? Or are you on the court? And none of those places are wrong. Just identify where you are. The capital Y-O-U, not the lowercase y-O-U. The lowercase y-O-U will have you in the stands. Listen to yourself. Talk to yourself about what you would do, knowing that you can do it, knowing that you have the ability to do it, knowing that you have the skills to do it, knowing that you are capable of doing it, knowing that you could be responsible enough to do it, knowing that you have the confidence to do it. But you don't. Why did I not do it? Because there's a part of Farron that dealt with and still deals with, I'm not worth it. I'm not good enough. I'm not enough. I'm not whatever those are for you. See, I had to go and tell the truth to myself, even what those I'm nots are. Because those I'm nots, that I'm not good enough, I have no control over those. See, the body sensation of I'm not good enough can hit my body, and I feel this anxiety in my legs, and I feel crippled, and then I would just go lay down because I don't like this. I can't handle the way that my legs feel. I feel like I'm losing myself. So I would just go lay down and maybe an hour to sleep it off, maybe 12 hours to sleep it off. Sometimes the body reacts first. And then sometimes we have the thoughts. Those thoughts, I can't. I definitely don't want to take a chance on that, because the last time I did something like that, I was embarrassed. I was also disappointed. And I had a little bit of shame. But that was a past experience. But I'm reminded of myself, the lowercase y-o-u, the U remind you of those experiences, so I don't never want to experience being embarrassed again in front of people. I don't ever want to feel disappointed in myself or other people. Usually disappointment is from other people first. We don't look at ourselves as we disappoint ourselves first. We usually blame other people about the disappointment, and then we get stuck with that. Shame, shame is up there. Shame. One is enough. If you're living in all three spaces of those, then we wonder why we're so mentally exhausted. That's where I found myself. Trying to avoid shame, disappointment, embarrassment, because I didn't want to feel those pains ever again. I didn't want to feel that shame. I don't want to be disappointed in people. But one of the key words that I'm saying today is the doing, right? What do you do? What do you do? What are you going to 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 do? That's what we ask people. What are you going to do? Oh man, that happened to you. Well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Guess what I learned? It's not what are you going to do. It's who you're going to be. See, because the capital Y-O-U is that spiritual being. If you believe that conversation, then we're spirits inside this body with a soul that allows us to experience this life. So there's an experience that comes with us as being people. Human beings is the experience. We're not human doings. See, most people live from the soul of the human doing. Well, what are you going to do? Well, if I'm frustrated, guess what my actions, guess what I'm going to do? Whatever I do as an action is going to be a frustrating experience. It's going to be an angry experience. It's going to be whatever that is as an experience. And so 99.9% of my conversation is about the human experience. And most people don't, we discount that because we don't want to feel, we don't want to feel that. No, I know what that feels like. I don't want to feel that pain. I don't want to feel that. I know what that feels like. That feels disappointing. But that's the doing. My conversation to you about the capital Y-O-U is, who are you being? Who do you get to be in those conversations? Who do you get to be in those situations? Do you get to be your opinion? Or do you get to be the person that you want to be to express who you are as a person authentically? Do you be that way so you can be liked? Or do you be that way to be accepted? Because sometimes we do stuff to be accepted, and then we still don't be accepted. Sometimes we do stuff to be liked, and then we're still not liked. So it's not the doing. I know the doing. I know that's what we lead from most of the time. I know that's what I used to lead from. I still lead from sometimes. But see, what I did was I was able to recognize when I'm doing something and not being it. But it's not the doing of the activity. It's not the being in the activity. It's the experience of myself. That's what I had to tell the truth about. That's where the work that I've done has transformed my life experience, because I pay attention to who I'm being first. And when you take a look at that from another perspective, life looks different. Vitality comes back. Brightness comes, aliveness comes back when you check your experience first. See, it's not hard. It's challenging because I had to go back and tell the truth to myself of 40 years of stuff that I experienced, that I had proof, I had evidence, and like, you couldn't tell me anything differently because I seen it. I experienced it. I felt it in my body. I got proof. I got receipts. Which could be true. But it wasn't the truth. So how do you, the capital Y-O-U, challenge the lowercase y-O-U to figure out who you are being and what you're doing? Is it you, the spirit being, or you, the soul, with the mind, will, and emotions? And what we don't realize is that people can tell the difference. That's why people can say, man, how are you so calm when there's chaos standing in front of you? Because I practice who I get to be in chaos. I practice who I get to be in situations that are for sometimes uncomfortable. But is it uncomfortable, or is it just I'm describing it as uncomfortable? And out of all the ways of life that I can describe my experiences, I use the word uncomfortable to describe it. So then I have to challenge how I talk. Then I had to challenge how I think, and then what comes out of my mouth to describe my life. And sometimes we don't describe life in a way that gives us power. Sometimes we describe life in a way that diminishes us as our experience of ourselves. Sometimes that shame is so diminishing that I don't even want to feel it. So I'm not even going to do anything. Sometimes I'm so embarrassed that I'm not even going to do anything because I don't want to keep experiencing being embarrassed. The disappointments. Sometimes I'm disappointed in myself, like, man, Farron, how did you do that again, man? Like again? Like you keep making the same mistakes again? And then your heart, the lowercase YLU says, see, I told you not to do that, man. I told you it was going to happen again. You see, because the lowercase YLU is always going to be right. It's always going to make itself right. And so we wonder why life keeps looking the same way and it keeps turning out in these different situations, because your heart is leading that life. And so your heart is always going to be right to protect it, but your spirit is like, I'm suffering. And why did I do that? And your mind says, because I told you. Or your body said, because it felt good. Doesn't mean it's right. You see, just because you have the right to say something doesn't mean it's right. That's your character. That's your heart. Your heart wants to be right. I had to learn to separate. See, I never knew that I could challenge my thoughts. I never knew that as I grew up from a child's perspective, from a child's perception, from a child's actions, that I could challenge my thoughts. When my mind said that this was going to happen, then I acted as such. I danced with how my mind said I needed to act. Now, until I got educated, until I was at one of the most darkest spots of my entire life, once I got to that space of despair, I was beyond disappointed in myself. I was at despair. See, when you get to despair, it's like, then why bother? What comes out of your mouth when you get to despair? There's probably a word that you say that you describe it with. Mine was why bother? When I got to despair, it's like, why bother? Like, I'm not even, no. And so nothing happens. And then what is that experience of myself in despair? And I'm saying, why bother? Some people language that as self-loathing. And then I'm moping around and I'm laying around and I'm like just talking crazy and just however my facial expressions are. And people are like, what is wrong with you? It's self-loathing. Low mood stress. There are days that I feel great, and there are days that I feel like, what am I doing? No one else feels that? Hello? No one? Hello? Am I the only one? See, we hear these conversations and especially if I'm on the internet. Do you realize that everybody's not on the internet? Do you realize that everybody is not on the internet? And so for those of us who are on the internet, we have to protect our hearts, because a lot of these conversations are not good conversations. They sound good. They sound right, but are they right? So what are you challenging your life up against? What are you challenging your thoughts up against? You've got to find something outside of your own mind to challenge your reality up against. I'm grateful for the VA. As a veteran, we have unlimited amounts of benefits. And it was cognitive behavior. I recommend to all of my veterans, your family members, your children, your loved ones, your cousins, your mom, your dad, your grandpa, I recommend cognitive behavior. Shouts out to my baby sister who does this work she's qualified to have these kind of talks one-on-one. And I give her that credit, because in 2016 on one of my talk shows at LA Talk Live, it was me, my mom, and her, and another guest. of my mom's friend, and my sister was like, bro, you need cognitive behavior. The way that you're talking about life, your experience, you need CBT. It took me 4 years to go to the VA and ask for that class. But it was planted in my heart because my sister said, hey, bro, this is the class that you need for that. And I heard her. And I grabbed it and I put it away in the back of my mind. I remember her saying that. I remember. And so when I had that opportunity to go to the VA and I was dealing with my grief of my dad's loss in 2019, I took those grievance class because I knew that principles, you have to be used by principles. So the personal development education that I took at 40 taught me how to use principles, to challenge my life and my thoughts up against principles, to challenge my behavior up against a principle. That I had no principles. Well, I take that back. We live by principles already. See, embarrassment could be a principle. If you're used by embarrassment, if you're used by shame, if you're used by anger, if you're used by judgment, if you're used by your opinions, those could be principles that you live from, that you talk about. So when I took those VA classes and I did the grief counseling, I recommend the VA's got grief counseling too. So if you are a veteran or a dependent of a veteran and you're dealing with loss, let me tell you, they got, I think it was 10 weeks of grief counseling. So I knew that principles work if you use them. And after I got done with the grief counseling, my psychologist was like, anything else you want to work on? I was like, you know what? Yeah, I do. I want to work on something. My sister recommended CBT. Do we have CBT here? Oh yeah, we got CBT. And I put myself in that CBT class, and every week I put those stories in my head in that curriculum. And I unraveled those stories with something that was outside of Farron, because Farron's going to always be right about himself, right or wrong, good or bad. But when I had enough confidence in those principles that I put my life in those stories and those curriculums, I unraveled some stuff. I unraveled that how I talk was so exaggerated. All or none. I don't trust women. I'm abandoned. Whatever. How we talk. And when I put those stories, those conversations in that curriculum, and I use those principles, is that thought exaggerated? Is that thought habitual? I had to be willing to look at that thought that I've been having since as far as I know. See, a lot of those things that happen to us, those are the things that we remember because we don't never want to have that happen again. I don't ever want to have my dad disappoint me. I don't ever want to have my mom feel like she abandoned me. I don't ever want to have that girlfriend feel like that she's going to leave me. You hear people say it all the time. I want loyalty. I want trust. You know why they want that? Because they don't have that for themselves sometimes. Because sometimes we don't have that loyalty, or we have it, but I don't want to give it to you until you show me that you're going to be loyal to me first. And then I'll show you my loyalty. See, I'm protecting myself. I got a boundary. But we don't realize that that wall that we built is also blocking myself. So when I put these blinders on and I'm trying to protect myself from around, I can't see over there. I see myself. I see my own hands. So sometimes when you hear people talk, how I talked, that class showed me, okay, I don't trust women, and I live from that. I live by that. In the back of my mind, though, I was 1 foot in and 1 foot out in relationships because I felt like I was going to be left alone. and I didn't want to feel that 8-year-old pain again. So how can I have a relationship with a woman completely when I'm already afraid of being left alone and embarrassed and don't want to experience shame? See, I was divorced at 21 years old. I didn't realize how much shame I was living in from that divorce at 21. It was also embarrassing to say that I was divorced. So not only was it shame, it was divorce. In divorce, it was also embarrassment. And I was a little disappointed in myself too. At 21. And I got married in church because that's what the church said I had to do. I understand it today, but can you imagine carrying shame at 21 years old into your 20s, into your 30s, into your 40s, and maybe into your 50s from a divorce that's connected to shame, embarrassment, and disappointment? That's one experience. Imagine the trajectory of your life from that point on, that you're living from shame and disappointment and embarrassment. You're going to be thrown off. You're going to sabotage relationships to protect yourself. You're going to do things that's not going to be right to another person to protect yourself. My conversation was, why bother? Why get a girlfriend? Why bother? Why get married again? Why bother? Why bother? I got proof that it's shameful. I got proof. But in that CBT conversation, I tell you what, I put those stories in there and I unraveled. One of the biggest ones that I unraveled in that CBT was that my mom abandoned me. And today I can tell you that I was not abandoned. Farron was never abandoned, never, ever abandoned. But the perception of an 8-year-old, the mind of a child who had no concept of time, who was an emotional child, who lived in his feelings, who believed his thoughts were the truth about life. A child that didn't know what it was to be an adult. You got adults trying to figure out what it is to be adult. You hear people talk about on if you're on the internet, adulting. People are tired. I don't want to be an adult no more. Like that's real life. People say that out their mouth. But that was from Farron's perspective as a child. But you see, I had to admit that to myself. I had to go back to 8 years old and tell the truth to that little hurt Farron at 8 that says, bro, your mom didn't abandon you. Even though it felt like it, even though it looked like it, even though that's how you thought about it, even though that's what you said to yourself. I never told anybody that I felt like my mom abandoned me. I never said that to anyone. That never came out of my mouth. That's how I talked to myself, about my experience of myself, about how I felt my mom treated me. And it wasn't true. It was my truth, but it was the truth of a child's perception. It was the truth of a child's view of time, that 90 minutes felt like 20 hours. It was the truth to a 5-year-old that said his dad didn't love him. That wasn't true. My dad loved me and he did everything that he could with what he knew, with what he had, and so did my mom. But why at 50 did I have to figure that out? Why at 40 did I have to figure that out? And it's not wrong. I know why at those ages, because that's what God had me go through so that I can be in front of you today and articulate this conversation. I teach emotional intelligence to 4th and 5th graders. I can relate to a 5-year-old. I can relate to an 8-year-old. Relate. Why? Because I was that age before. Because I made up some stories at those ages that I know that most of us did for real, if we tell the truth. I can go back to 2 years old in a thought process that had me disconnected from my mom. At 2 years old, that I barely had language, but I know what that felt like. So as a patient advocate, I want to stand in that gap. And if we tell the truth about where we've been and who we are and our experiences, we're not different. Men, women, we're not different at all. So what is that capital YOU saying to the lowercase YOU? Because it's you versus you. It's nobody else. And sometimes we just need to hear from someone else to recognize or to tell the truth that, you know what, I've been thinking like that too, actually. But this is my story about that. And now you can, hey, you know what, man, if I was you, I recommend cognitive behavior. If you want to challenge your thoughts, cognitive behavior, CBT, veterans, we get it. You got benefits, you got mental health benefits, cognitive behavior, CBT. I recommend that to anyone who's willing to take a step to look at their own life, to grab those thoughts and put those thoughts through a principle to unravel it so that you can find peace. On the spiritual side of that, yes, I do share at church the last 3 years. My conversations are from my life experience. That whole childhood conversation is a biblical context, is a biblical commandment of honor your father and mother. And by not honoring your father and mother, guess how your life could turn out? It could turn out off track. It could turn out, hey, that we see people join gangs, we see people join political parties, clubs to fit in, to feel like they belong somewhere because they don't feel like they belonged in their own family. So you go somewhere where you feel like you fit in, even though the conversation is all wrong or all corrupted, should I say. It's real. You ain't got to Google it. Take those principles and put your life in those conversations, but you got to find something that you have confidence in. You got to find something that you trust. Yes, those worldly conversations are not going to save you. They're not going to save your soul for eternal life. That's a whole biblical conversation that we can have as well. But sometimes you got to just meet people where they are. I wasn't talking to God back then. I had him in my heart, but he wasn't my go-to. But sometimes he'll use those worldly conversations to get you back on track to him. And I'm proof of that. So the YOU, capital YOU, is your spiritual. You got to feed your spirit. What are you feeding your spirit? Sometimes we got to put those things in order. Sometimes we live life out of order. Some people say your soul, your mind, and your body. What do you say? I had to challenge those conversations. Nah, for me, it's spirit, soul, and body. My soul is in the middle. My soul is a mediator between my spirit and my body. So I got to feed my spirit so that my soul can become on my side and listen to my spirit. Because sometimes we do stuff and our spirit say, oh, I don't want to do that. But your soul says, oh, what you mean we doing that today? And your body's like, yeah, okay, let's give it to me. So how do you frame it? How do you even frame how you talk? I talk so exaggerated that when I discovered that my mom didn't abandon me, that it was 90 minutes, and all I did was laugh. I laughed at myself that from 8 to 40 is when I discovered it at 40. And then I really didn't finish all the work until 50, 51, 52. And that's what I told myself, that I was abandoned by my mom. And it was her fault that I turned out the way that I turned out. And then at 52, it was like, oh shoot, my mom didn't abandon me. So now I got to go back and clean up. See, that's the challenge. I'm gonna say every time that I'm in my personal development classes and I put my life in those conversations, those principles, and I discover where that stuff is coming from, I feel it in my body. I feel the anxiety in my body. And I know that when I feel that, I gotta go through that feeling. I can't push those feelings away, because those feelings are coming up because that's where it's coming from. And when I allow myself to experience that body sensation of disappointment or shame or embarrassment, and I go through it, see, on the other side of that is peace. On the other side of it is freedom. So sometimes we don't even want to feel that pain. Like, we know where it's coming from, but I don't want to feel it. No. And so we suppress it and we push it away. But I can tell you, every time, I'm using every time, I don't use every time all the time, but every time I notice that when I'm about to have a breakthrough from my past experiences and my thoughts and my body sensations and my heart is ready to let it go, I feel it in my body. And as soon as I let it go through, it may take a day. I may go to sleep that night after class and I may sit in my chair after class and be like, dang, like, this is it. And the next morning I wake up, it's past. And then I have clarity. And I go back and look at the curriculum and I'm like, yeah, this is where that came from. I make things in life significant. I make life significant. I spoke that life is fun, exciting, and dangerous. That's how I live my life. Life is fun, exciting, and dangerous. But guess what? When danger showed up, I had no control over it. No control. And the danger really came from relationships, because I was in the military. I ride a motorcycle. I drive cars. Like, I could drive, like, the adrenaline that I got from the military experience. The closest thing that I can get to that is my Spider or my 370Z doing about 80, 90 miles an hour. That adrenaline from my career of the military, that's the only thing that gets closest to that experience, where I'm like, I feel free, but I got to be doing 80 miles an hour in a car. That's dangerous for some. But see, for us as military veterans, we're trained for danger. So my military career wasn't dangerous. My point, driving this fast car is not dangerous. Driving my motorcycle is not dangerous to me. A relationship is dangerous to me. But I had to look and see where that came from. Where did that come from? Where did that danger come from? What did that experience of that being so dangerous in relationships? It went all the way back to my mama, from a child's perception of his mother that was made up by some experiences that I didn't understand as a child. The 2-year-old child, that's as far as I can go back. 2 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, 8 years old, 11 years old, 14 years old, 16 or 23, or I got 11-year-old in there too. Why I like cars so much. Like, I went and I had to go back down and I had to go back and take a look. And guess what? All those 10 stories, is 10 of them. All those 10 experiences, they all popped up. They all popped up. And I saw that. Why do I remember that? Why do I remember being in second grade, being laughed at when I was reading? Why do I remember embarrassment walking down the street with my stepfather? Why do I remember when that girl said that she wouldn't date a guy with no kids, and I made that mean something about Farron, that she wasn't even talking to me, that one girl represented all women, and so I'm really not, I have 2 daughters, I'm really not going to be accepted. Who's going to want a guy that has 2 children? That was a decision I made at 23. I was embarrassed that I had children. And it was cool because my dad didn't see me for a long time. So I felt like, hey, I'll deal with it later when they get older. Worst decision that I made about my daughters. But it came from a conversation of me listening to some girl at a restaurant talking loud to her friend about what she wouldn't date or who she would. You know what? She has a right to pick that, though. See what I'm saying? She has a right. But I was 23. You know how that affected, how I let that affect Farron from 23 years old until even 55? Those are the things that we go through in life, that we hear conversations and then we make it mean something about us that had nothing to, that topic had nothing to do with Farron. But I didn't discover that until in my 40s. In my late 40s, that, hey, Farron, it's okay if a woman doesn't like you because you have children. That's her loss. There are women that will want to be with you and date you because you have 2 children. They don't care about that. But let me be honest with you. Let me tell the truth. When I heard that girl say that about what she wouldn't date a man with kids, with children, you know how this is how I survived that conversation. I said to myself, and I'm having dinner with my best friend, Al White. We having dinner at a restaurant, and I'm ear hustling to the table next to me. And so I'm not even listening to what he and I talking. He talking to me. I ain't listening to nothing. He said, my ears is over where this girl is at. And I'm hearing her go off. I mean, she went in. She went in so hard. I felt embarrassed at the table. That's how I felt. I was like, damn, she talking about me. And so in my mind, my brain, okay, if a woman's not gonna date me because I have children, does that really matter that I have kids? It shouldn't be her. She shouldn't have to know about that because my children have nothing to do with her. This is me talking to myself as I'm eating dinner, listening to my friend talk to listen to these, and my mind is like, okay, how are we gonna survive this one, Farron? How are we gonna survive? Oh, what we gonna do is, now this is me talking. This is the lowercase YOU talking to Farron, capital YOU. My mind says in that moment, okay, this is what we're gonna do, Farron. If a girl asks you if you have children, you're gonna say no. Yeah, because my children have nothing to do. She should like me for me, is what my mind told me. She should like you for you first, and then the children second. And so in my mind, and the pain, the body sensation of what she said and how I felt. Remember, I already had some past issues already about being abandoned, and by this time, the 14-year-old heartbreak. So I got evidence, the shame from the marriage that's broken. I got evidence, proof. And then I hear another piece that says, I'm not going to be accepted by women. And my mind says, okay, I'm not gonna say I have children because she should want me for me, which in some cases could make sense to somebody. But what that did was I became a liar. And so when I was diminished in my experience of myself and embarrassed of my daughters and having shame around having 2 daughters, and a woman asked me if I had children, I would say no. Nope. But guess what? Now that I said no and she starts to be my friend and talk to me, now I can't ever bring up my daughters because I've already lied. Now, there were days that I was a proud father, proud dad, proud parent. And I'd be like, yeah, I have two I have 2 daughters. Yes. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, with that courage of saying that, my mind would I would hold my breath because I gotta brace myself to her answer on having 2 children. Remember, because I'm ashamed, embarrassment, disappointed in myself. So I'll say, yeah, I'm confident. Yeah, I have 2 daughters. But then I'm like, I hold my breath and wait for her response. And if she says, I can't, I don't date guys with kids. Okay, well, all right, that's cool. Sometimes I would lie and say I only have 1. You have any children? Oh, I have one. But guess what? Now, if she's in my life, she can't find out about my other daughter. So I became a liar. Now I can articulate that. I own that because that was my behavior, and that was Farron trying to survive not being accepted. I'm not proud of it. I own it. So my mind can't hold that against me anymore. It can't trigger me. But that's the capital YOU versus the lowercase YOU. Your mind, your heart. Your heart is your subconscious mind, and it will lie to be accepted. People lie to be accepted just for that one moment, because the power of sense of belonging, that I would just take this 1 second to be loved and lose it than to not have loved at all. So like, well, no wonder that's a true saying, that there's some truth to that. But what's behind that? What's the spirit behind that? That was a broken 23-year-old. 23-year-old who had 2 daughters, who was lost. I wasn't no parent. I wasn't even a father. I didn't even know what the heck I was doing. Trying to be accepted by women still. And not with the women of my children either. The life of a 23-year-old. But I had to go back and tell the truth. I had to go back and do the work. I had to go back and free my mind from that 23-year-old decision that I'm not going to be accepted by women because I have children. Today, I'm so happy to be a father. I'm a grandfather. Like, I got I got my daughters back. Do you understand that? I was embarrassed. I had people in the military that didn't know if I was married or had children. Because they didn't even, they was like, do you have any kids at all? Because I thought I heard you say your paperwork said you got 2 daughters and a wife. But you talk like you by yourself. Shame, embarrassment, and disappointment. So, I'm not saying what do you do? I'm not going to tell you what you need to do. I have no idea what you need to do. My point is who you're going to be. You, the capital YOU. Who are you going to be? You're going to be confident, courage, or you're going to be angry and disappointed and embarrassed. You have a choice. But sometimes our heart is so hardened. Sometimes our mind is so afraid of experiencing those pains again that we lie. We don't tell the truth. We deceive. We cheat. We do whatever it takes to not be embarrassed, but you still end up looking bad. That's what I didn't understand. I would lie and then get caught, and so I should have just told the truth in the beginning. Now I really look bad. I was avoid trying to look bad in the start and still end up looking bad. That's what your mind does, and tries to think it's protecting you. Your heart is not protecting you. It's not. Because there's nothing to protect you from. It thinks it can protect you from those experiences, especially the negative ones. The Bible says, repent, change the way you think. That's what Jesus Christ preached. If you go to the Old Testament, all the way back to Genesis, that whole biblical principle and conversation is about people going through their struggles and God putting them back on track. Going through their struggles and God putting them back on track. And if it got too out of whack, God would send a baby so that the baby could be born, so the person could alter that conversation and put his will back on track. So why did he send us here? Why are you here? I'm here for sickle cell trait awareness and listening to the heart of mankind based off of my experiences. All those experiences that I went through, those 10 experiences, I speak from those today. And I'm still peeling off layers to those 10 conversations too, though, because they're so ingrained, enrooted into who Farron is that they still show up. The old Farron is still there. The old Farron is still capable of cheating. The old Farron is still capable of lying about his children. But I catch myself and I remember I'm not 12. I'm not 23. And I own my past. So I'm not embarrassed about it. I'm not ashamed about my past anymore. I'm not even disappointed in my past anymore. One is enough. Maybe you don't have shame or disappointment, but you have embarrassment. Maybe you don't have embarrassment or disappointment. Maybe you have shame. Maybe you find yourself in all three like I was. That's where the anger comes from. It comes from one of those possibly. Not being patient could come from because you don't be disappointed. Could become from you don't want to be embarrassed or you want to look embarrassed. So we don't have patience. You want loyalty because your loyalty was broken from someone else. So you don't want to give your loyalty away. You want people to give it to you first. And then I'll show you my loyalty. Then I'll show you my trust. Well, we're not supposed to trust each other anyway. I'm supposed to have confidence in you. I'm not supposed to trust another person. That's biblical. You trust in the Lord, you have confidence in man. But guess what? I don't have confidence in Farron 100%. So then why would I have confidence in you? Why would I expect you to give me all your 100% confidence when I don't have 100% confidence in myself? So then what is that? Well, I learned it as, hey, I got 80% confidence. So that 20% confidence that I don't have in myself, I might wear that as a shield to protect me from other people. So that still doesn't go back to the other people, 20%. Now that's what Farron has to go back and look at. What is that 20% that I don't have confidence in myself in? But I might wear that as a shield and protect myself from other people. So if you speak to that brokenness that I'm about my confidence and you say something about that, you can't point that out. Who are you to tell me about how I'm supposed to be as confidence? And now we fight. Or now you're not my friend. Or now I might be in jail. Now I might have a case. Or I might be dead because of my 20% lack of confidence in myself that I got to protect myself from someone else. And we wonder why life is the way it is. So sometimes out of your love and concern for people, you could be speaking to their pain, which causes them to defend themselves. See, that's when you get to take responsibility for your behavior. Because sometimes I might say something, not intentionally, maybe from love or concern or worry about that person. And now I speak to their fracture. And now they don't want to talk to me because I spoke to their fracture. But I'm telling the truth. Yeah, but just because you have the right to say something doesn't mean it's right. I didn't take a break. I didn't play a PSA. I have been talking to you for an hour and 9 minutes. I wasn't going to do a show today. I was just going to let this go. But I don't want to be a talking head. I usually like to have a guest, but I'm finding myself, that this is a place that I get to express myself, right? And hopes that someone hears something for themselves. This is the Farron Dozier Show on the Military Broadcast Radio Network. Wednesdays at 4 p.m. You can catch me on KCA Radio Sundays at 8 p.m. You can catch me on Beyond 2D. Shouts out to Jessica. We are peeling off some labels. The next label we're putting off on the 28th of October is Race. Even in those conversations that I have, it's about you versus you. You have to be willing to tell the truth to yourself first. For my veterans, brothers and sisters at arms, please just try it. Cognitive behavior. It's at the VA. I recommend that class. I recommend, because I had to my heart was softened. I found personal development classes first. Now, I had church in my mind, in my heart growing up. So those seeds were planted by my grandparents, my mom, my dad, going to church as a child. Those seeds were in there. Those are the seeds that you see now that have been watered the last since 19. So about 6-7 years almost. I've been watering those seeds for my faith in Christ. But I was willing to look at that. Some people aren't willing. Some people aren't even concerned about where their soul's going. Some people's not just trying to figure out how to make it through the day. But guess what? There's conversations in that Bible that can show you who you get to be. See, my conversation is not what you're going to do. It's who you're going to be about that. Are you going to be frustrated? Or are you going to be patient? Are you going to be angry? Or are you going to be calm? Are you going to be embarrassed? Or are you going to be confident? Courage. Like, those are ways of being. See, you don't do patience. You don't do confidence. See, we think that we do those things. You have to be those as a way of being. So you might have to go back and relearn. You might have to go back and get some new knowledge, some new understanding, get some comprehension so that you can apply that stuff to your life as a way to be, not what you do. My conversations are not what you do in life. From my church conversations to my radio show conversations, I don't focus on what are you doing. I focus on, I'll always come back to, well, who did you have to become to be that kind of person? Who did you have to become to be the person you are today? And sometimes a lot of us are driven from shame, embarrassment, disappointment. Adam and Eve, they was embarrassed. When Adam ate that fruit, we naked. We got to go cover up and get some leaves, yo. Get that leaf over there. Get that palm tree. Get that soft one over there, girl. I need the soft one. That one's too hard. How did they know? They were embarrassed. They had shame. One of the first strongholds in the Bible. That's a very powerful passage if you look at it from life and you put your life in that conversation. We grew up as children and you got photos of your parents probably got photos of you naked in diapers. You wasn't embarrassed back then. But one day you're like, oh, I got to cover up because I'm embarrassed. Somebody says something to you. It's no different, parents, than you have your child playing around the house. And then one day they're playing around the house and they jump on a table. And now you tell them, get off that table. The child is shocked. So you've been letting me play on this table for years. And now all of a sudden, now it's come on. Like, do we really understand that? I don't think we really understand child development. Your brain, your mind, your heart, perception patterns, memory patterns, and action patterns. And some of that stuff that we put in our heart is corrupted information. We've downloaded some behaviors that just don't work anymore. I'm done surviving life, man. I'm done. I don't want to survive life. I want to live life. I want to be free. I want to be able to have conversations. I want to feel, I don't care about if I have to look bad as my experience of myself. And lastly, before I get out of here, my ministry today is really teaching people or showing people how to give your opinion about yourself. For me, that's what it boiled down to. Farron had a lot of opinions about who Farron was and who Farron said he was. But from a place of embarrassment, shame, and disappointment. See, I had to figure out what are those three core issues, right? Because as human beings, it's already hard for us to honor our word to ourselves, right? It's hard for people to honor their word to themselves first. But yet I want you to keep your word to me. You see what I'm saying? But you don't keep your word to yourself, but you expect people to honor their word to you 100%. When you don't honor your word to yourself 100%, Farron. But instead of talking like that, I had to put that in a percentage. I trust myself about 80%. There's 20% that Farron don't trust Farron 100%. I don't trust Farron 100%. You can have confidence in me, though. You can have 80% confidence in me, but don't trust me, because I disappoint myself. I would disappoint you, and it may not be on purpose. And maybe because I'm embarrassed and I don't know how to say no. Or I say yes because I want you to like me. Or I just do whatever just to fit in. Ambivalence. I had to learn ambivalence. I dealt with ambivalence for most of my life. See, ambivalence comes from a space of almost the fear of missing out. They call it FOMO. So for me, like, I got two things I want to do. Now, I really want to go over here and hang out with my friends, but my other friends want me to go with them. And if I don't go with them, then I'm going to feel bad that I didn't go with them. So if I go with them, I'm not going to be happy with myself, because I really didn't want to go there. I really wanted to go over here to the right. But I don't want to disappoint the people on the left. So then I'm stuck in the middle of like, okay, I don't know what to do. Because either I'm going to be disappointed in myself or they're going to be disappointed in me. The friends on the right don't care. It's the people on the left that I'm like, ooh, they're going to feel bad if I tell them I can't go with them. And guess what? I really don't want to go. I would rather go there. So when I learned it as ambivalence, it's challenging between fearing that not that you're just going to let people down, but let yourself down. So then how do I go through life when I'm doing stuff that I don't really want to do, but I'm doing it just to fit in with people? And then I'm not happy. And then I'm complaining that why did I go with them? I should have went over here, or I should have stayed home. That was me. I used to go to the club a lot, only to hang out with my friends to fit in. I would be at the club like, man, I should have stayed at home tonight. Why did I even come? I guess that's why I'm a homebody now. Because back then it was like, why am I in the club? I don't even like going to clubs. I don't even like clubs. I don't care about dancing. I would be in the club like, man, I should have stayed. And don't meet a person. It's really like, I should have just stayed. I wasted tonight. I should have stayed at home. What is that? Is that you or the lowercase y on you? So I appreciate you for tuning in and listening today. I'm very grateful. I've been at this podcast and now talk shows, internet radio, blog talk radio, 15 years. I almost feel like a grandfather in this. I don't have it all figured out. And, shows happen. I've reduced my ego as low as possible. I don't care how many people watch. I don't care about how many people view it. But I do know that sometimes these conversations are important. And if one person, even if it's me, get my freedom of expressing myself to you today, that may sound way out. I'm expressed, right? I'm expressed. And then I'll watch this and I'll be like, what are you talking about? Why did you say that? What are you doing? Yeah, but you know what? Hey, this is woo. Yeah, these platforms are powerful. They can be. So for those of you who watch live, I appreciate you. For those that watch this on the rerun or catch it another time or another year, that's just this at today's time. This is who Farron is today. And after tonight's class of my personal development, I might peel off another layer tonight, and you might hear something else tomorrow. You know, I was talking to my mom, and you know, she was like, "What at what age does a person figure out that they need to break these generational curses and consequences?" And I was like, I don't know, Mom, because is there really an age? It could be a lifelong journey. I mean, some people die and never discover their issues or what they've been dealing with. My dad passed at 69, and for 68 years, he thought he was racist. And he wasn't. So I'm looking for this one scripture. I don't have it memorized. But yeah, so we were talking about that. So there's a passage in the Bible called the prodigal son, right? And the prodigal son is right here. One of the main things when that passage was revealed to me early, I saw it from a different perspective. I saw it that, you know, that young man went to his father and I want my inheritance, Dad. Give me my inheritance. I'm going to take off. I'm ready to be on my own. See, some of us think independence is freedom, and it's not. When I moved out and got my own place, talk about rent, gas, like phone bill, water, and like all, yeah. Independence ain't freedom all the time. Sometimes you got to be careful what you ask for, right? But in that passage, it's in Luke 15. In that passage, it demonstrates three characters: the son, the prodigal son himself that took his inheritance, the dad, and the brother. Right. So for me, there was three different perspectives of that passage. And most of us, we learned from the one who took his inheritance, spent it all, and found himself sleeping in the pig pen and eating pig slop and all of that, right? But have you took that path and put yourself in those different characters? Have you looked at yourself as the prodigal son himself? I did. And when I looked at it for myself, right here, it's verse 13. Out of all the stuff he went through, it says, and not many days after, the young son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with righteous living, right? That's where he grabbed all of his stuff, he took off, and then he was like blowing it. Crazy stuff, right? I sinned against my heaven, right here, 20. And he rose and came to his father, but he was yet a great way off. His father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. See, the dad was looking for his son. He wanted his son to come back. He wanted his son. He was looking for his son. But the son came to himself. Right here, 17. And when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough to spare, and I will perish with hunger? So my mom said, Farron, at what point does a person discover that they need to break themselves from their past experiences, from the hurt, that they blame other people, that they blame their parents? I said, well, Mom, in that passage, it doesn't say how long the prodigal son was in the pig pen eating pig slop. It doesn't say if it was 5 years. It doesn't say 30 years. It doesn't say 50 years. It doesn't say 2 weeks. It just says that in verse Luke 15:17, it says, and when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father have bread enough to spare, and I would perish with hunger. But see, the thing is, even when he came to himself, he reduced himself to be a servant. He didn't even see himself as his father's son because he felt like he took his inheritance and he blew it all. He messed up. Right? But when his father saw him, he grabbed him. Like, no, you're not a servant, you're my son. That's what God is waiting for us to come back and say. Christ is waiting for us to turn around and be like, oh no, you're my father. Yeah, you're my son. You're not a servant. And sometimes parents, your child wants to come home, but doesn't have the confidence because of the embarrassment or the shame or the disappointment that they feel in themselves, that they think that that's how you're going to see them when they show back up at the house looking for help. This is why honor your father and mother is not love or like your parents, your father and mother, is how we think about them. That passage is about how we think about them. I didn't love my mom and dad all the time. That's not realistic. But how I thought about them was they didn't love me and I was abandoned by them. So how do you think my relationship with my parents are going to be if that's at the heart of myself, of how I view my parents? Oh, yeah, I love them. I would talk to them. I would see them. But in the back of my mind, and when I was little, they abandoned me. When I was little, my dad didn't love me. So he's just making up everything he's doing for me. He making it up because he didn't do that when I was little. Like, that's the perception of a child sometimes. Parents, if you have children, and children, you were somebody's child. That's the conversation. That's the you versus you. At what point did he come to himself? It doesn't say. I came to myself at 40. And there was a little bleep in my mind that was like, man, Farron, there's got to be something better. Like, you want to take your life, bro. There's got to be something better than this. Like, I heard myself say that. And a few years later, the prayers were answered and I got into this education and I've been working it out every day. At what point are you going to come to yourself and stop blaming your parents? At what point are you going to come to yourself and stop blaming the people in your life, your siblings? When you're going to stop blaming, when you're going to stop blaming yourself? Because if the lowercase YOU is controlling your feelings and emotions, you're going to experience being stuck. You're not going to experience freedom, or you might. And then it's a miracle when you feel free, it's a miracle. Because your happiness is connected to circumstances. When joy is within your spirit, it's within. But you can also generate happiness within too. Sometimes you got to generate your own happiness when there's no happiness outside in the world, that you can be happy. And people used to say, oh, you got rose-colored sunglasses on, Farron. How are you so just free to think and be free and you're not mad at the world? You're not mad at the white man. You're not mad at the government. You're not mad at that person who just hit your car or bumped into you. You're not mad that they stepped on your shoe. You're not mad. No, I'm not mad. I wonder what the heck they were going through to have to experience life like that for themselves. Why? Because I figured out what I was dealing with. And when I figured out what I was dealing with, I can only imagine what y'all dealing with. I know what I dealt with for 40 years. I can only imagine what the next person sitting next to me in this chair on this bus that's dealing with in their own life. See, what arises in that space of freedom that's that humility we point to. That's that empathy that we point to. That's that compassion that we point to. But I have to have compassion for myself first. I have to have empathy for myself first. Not like pity me. That's the soul. The soul thinks that if you open up yourself to that kind of love from a person, then it's pity. My sickle cell community, I hear that all the time. And not all the time, but a great part of the conversation is the pity. I don't want to. I want the pity. Pity me. I don't want that. Yeah, but you might need that. Maybe it's not pity. Maybe they really just truly care, and you're depriving them from giving you love, expressing love to you because you think it's pity, because that's how you see yourself. You versus you, ladies and gentlemen. I gotta go. 90 minutes in. I appreciate you for listening in. This is the Farron Dozier Show. Wednesdays at 4 p.m. on MB Radio and 8 o'clock on Sunday nights at kcaradio.com, farrond.com if you want more information. MB Radio. Go check out my brothers and sisters podcast on here. Again, the QR code up there in the corner. Help support our network. We don't have to pay for anything here. We do come together and donate back to the organization as well. But if you'd like to support us, support another veteran in their podcasting journey, discovering their voice and what's next in life for them, then hey, there's an opportunity there. You want more information about me? Let's drop the banners. farrond.com. You can go there. That is most of my community outreach as Farron expresses himself in who I get to be and what I get to do. The WDC on SCT is my sickle cell trait organization. Very, very important conversations. I'm not losing sight of that. That is my activity of life, that I get to go and talk about sickle cell trait and help people. But my experience of life is my discussions that you heard today. You can go to my link tree, Farron Dozier, The Life of A. That's one of my main series that I'm working on. I've written 3 books so far. I don't want to be an author, but I've written 3 books, and I got 7 more, possibly 8 more, but I know there's at least 7 more that I got to finish. You can go and check those out there at farrond.com as well. I did pull up this right here, so you can go and check that out. This is the site of the Farron D. One day I'm going to play some of these on my show too. But those are the inspirational reads right there. My testimonies. Disconnected with love at the 2-year-old. I labeled that under virtues. My perception of my father was the 5-year-old. I put that under patience because of how I treated my dad. Ooh-wee. Reading of a ruler. Reading with a ruler. That was a 6-year-old. I call that from the goodness. I made a decision that I would never raise my hand because I was embarrassed that the children laughed at me because I was reading with a ruler. My eyes wouldn't stay on the page, and for some reason today, it still happens. So what is that? I don't know. Never been diagnosed with anything. The Latchkey Kid of 1978, that was for my mom, the 8-year-old. That was gentleness. Definitely got to have gentleness for your mama. I love you, Mom. Thank you for everything you did for me. I appreciate it, and I'm responsible for my life today, so thank you. The Walk of Shame is the 11-year-old. That was joy because that was embarrassment. Ooh, I was so embarrassed on that Walk of Shame. That's why I buy all the cars. That decision came from the 11-year-old decision that I would never be without a good running car. Well, sometimes when you make those decisions, I had proof. I had 5 cars and a motorcycle at one time. The day I gave up being vulnerable, the self-loathing, that was the life of a 14-year-old. That was labeled with love. That was that peer decision. The 2 was my parents, and then that 3rd decision was my peer age, and that was from this broken heart. Owner of a Lonely Heart. If you know that song from 1985, that was my theme song at 14. The day I walked away from God, that's that 23-year-old decision I told you about. That's under faithfulness conversation. The Perfect Morning, the 36-year-old. That's when I collapsed from sickle cell trait exertion with rhabdo in the military. That was the perfect morning. That started my experiences of peace. And then the life of the 40-year-old, repentance and forgiveness. And the 50-year-old, that became kindness at 40 years old and self-control at 50. Those are the inspirational reads that I'm writing right now. The first 3 are done. The 2-year-old, the 5-year-old, and the 6-year and the 8-year-old are done. I'm working on the 6-year-old to get that one knocked out, and then I'll pursue the rest. But again, I wanted to just say thank you. You can go there. They're all available right there on the website. There are. I'll show you this. So this is the flip. On Kindle, but this is the flip book right here. I'm going to play that so you can see that real quick. That's the life of an that was one of my key decisions that I made, that I was abandoned by my mom, and that again, my mom didn't abandon me. Nope, not at all. Not once, not ever was I abandoned. But the perception of a child. I'll give it to you this. You know how in kindergarten, when your child goes to kindergarten, and some children cry like crazy because you're leaving them at kindergarten for the first day or the second day they cry? For some children, that transition and change can be an emotional transition. We laugh and joke because we all went through it at some point, or we know somebody who experienced it a little bit tougher than some of us. But for some children, that transition and change is emotional, because that child is now going from your house, being under you since they were 5 years old, and then they transition to kindergarten, and now they got to go to school for a couple hours by themselves, and they're not connected to you. There's a natural break in communication, right? We'll talk about that another time, but that's what it looks like when you have a person who deals with transition and change that's emotional. Even today, look at adults. It's hard for people to want to change, but change is not bad. Change is growth. Change can be development. Change is not always negative, but for some people, transition and change could be what stops them or keeps them from moving forward in life. And for some people, that ain't the one. It could be something else, right? But those are the places you can catch me. If you want more information, if you want to be a guest, right there at Farron Dozier. Again, I appreciate you for listening in. I got to get out of here. The show is over.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.